Hey Internet, wanted to say a big greeting. Today is Wednesday. At least it's Wednesday here in Paris, Paris, France. Remember, not Texas, because actually maybe this accent is insensitive. In which case, I'm sorry. Uh, I may or may not edit that out. Feel free to give feedback. Don't want to be culturally insensitive, but at the same time, want to be myself. So I guess I want to be myself unless I'm culturally insensitive. But let's get to the point. The point today is sort of a reflection around some of the reasons that at least I personally am interested in studying programming. So I've been dealing with this question a lot lately, partly from going through boot camp, partly from studying my own, or studying on my own rather, JavaScript, mostly a little bit of Python before moving to France. And I'm just like really frustrated with the idea or the concept sort of that I, for much of my life, thought that I couldn't learn to program. Not only that I couldn't learn to program, but that I shouldn't learn to program. Maybe it's the inverse. I thought that I shouldn't learn to program. What more is that I couldn't learn to program. However you want to frame it, I had this sort of false belief that programming was not for me, that I couldn't do it, shouldn't do it, wouldn't do it, whatever sort of form and tense you want to use in the English language or other is fine. But I think it's a shame, sort of, that a lot of people choose a view in life that they can't do something or that they can't learn something. And for me, one of the things the beliefs that I adopted, the things that I couldn't or shouldn't learn was programming. And I think that's like total bullshit, because I am learning to program. Every day I spend a little every day. Most days, Monday through Friday, plus a little bit of time on the weekend, I try to spend learning to program. Some days are really productive, some days are less productive. Some days I study 2 hours, some days I study 8 hours, 12 hours. Sometimes I am studying for like 14 hours, meaning that, I'll be at a co-working space or a coffee shop for like 14 hours and I'm studying. It's side note, like I used to work in consulting. Thank goodness I'm no longer there. It just wasn't for me. No direct comment on those individuals that are right fit for comment for consulting. It just clearly wasn't. I'm not cut out for it, which maybe in itself is a false belief. But anyway, coming back to the point. Used to have these days in econ consulting that we would work. We would be at the office for 10, 12, 16 hours at a time. One time I was at the office for 36 hours. It was a fucking terrible lifestyle, at least in my view of the world. And so I think it's funny when people say that they're studying and learning to code for like 12 or 16 hours a day. At least for me, it's like 16-hour block with sub-blocks, and some of those sub-blocks I'm productive, some I'm not. I don't think it's like a size comparison contest, really. It's sort of about figuring out what works for you and what doesn't. But I guess sort of when I've been thinking about sort of why I might want to learn to program, obviously there are some of the more common reasons, like financial independence, autonomy, social accolades. It's kind of cool to be a dev. Actually, it probably is cool to be a dev, particularly if you live in a cool place like Antarctica. That's actually probably cold to be a dev, and you might catch cold. Anyway, I'll stop with the bad jokes for the moment, but again, it was just like I think there is sort of these little more common threads of why one might learn to program, like potential financial outcomes, the ability to build things, the ability to solve problems, like a new way of thinking, all of these things. But one of the primary reasons for me, and sort of one of the core one of the genesises, whatever the proper word is, one of the sort of the primary things that like sort of drove us to start recording these videos is like, I think it's bullshit that, excuse my language, I think it's merde, that there's there's people like myself that believe or have believed that they couldn't learn to program, and I want to challenge that concept. We want to offer an alternative perspective that perhaps you can learn to program, perhaps you should learn to program, perhaps you could learn to program, and sort of flip the narrative on its head, and look at it from a different angle, perhaps the opposite angle, around whether or not it's possible to learn to be more technical. Our thesis is that it is indeed possible. Our thesis it should have certain qualifications, like not everyone is going to be like the top senior dev at Facebook or Google or insert Baidu, whatever cool tech company you want, wherever it is you live in the world. Like, you might not be that. On the other hand, maybe you will be. That's kind of not the point. The point is, what can you do today? What can you do tomorrow? What can you do over the next few months, few years, to sort of explore that question of whether or not you can learn to be more technical, whether that's technical in learning to program, whether that's technical in learning like growth hacking. I'm just going to start throwing stupid words in. Machine learning, blah, blah, blah. Insert big data, blah, blah, blah. I think that's sort of all beside the point. It's like, I think for me, it's like literally taking a step back and sort of just thinking about whether or not it is indeed possible for you to start a new journey, or to continue forward on the journey that you're already on, learning to potentially program or be more technical. And I wish that I had someone in my life at the age of 16, 20, 21. I could drink at that point in the US. 25, 26, 27. Right around 28, I decided that it might be possible to learn to program, but I didn't have sort of this external source, or I didn't find this external source, this mentor, this person on the internet telling me that it might be possible. So it took me a very long time to start to question whether or not it would be possible for me as an individual, as Tolan, to learn to program. And so I wonder what the situation is for you. I wonder what the status is for you. I wonder why you're watching this video. I wonder what you're going to do after watching this video. I wonder sort of how you think about approaching programming, or learning to program, LTC, learning to code, whether that's through formal thing like school, boot camp, free code camp, internet resources. Are you more a text-based learner versus an audio-based learner versus maybe you're kinesthetic and you have to do and repeat? I think there's just so many questions around learning to program that sometimes we have what's called analysis paralysis, and we just like are overwhelmed by all the choices, all the possibilities, and we don't really know where to start. So my challenge to you at the end of this video is to, if you haven't already, just to get started. Go spend 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, go code. Like, go to free code camp, jump into the JavaScript lessons, go to Codecademy, jump into the JavaScript lessons or the Ruby lessons, the Python lessons. It really doesn't matter sort of what language you want to learn. I would just encourage you today to spend some small amount of time like either continuing to learn that or starting for the first time, because a lot of times I think for me it's just the inertia that is one of the bigger hurdles to get over. So in synthesis, in review, I've been thinking about sort of the reasons that I want to learn to program, the sort of the motivations that I have personally. There are clearly financial, status, and other sort of social reasons that I am driven towards the idea of learning to code, LTC. But I think at least now, where I stand now, or where I sit now, metaphorically speaking, is I'm like personally frustrated with the fact that there are people out there like me who believe that they couldn't code, that they won't be able to code, and I think that's bullshit. I want to challenge that head on, or indirectly, whatever methods we use. I want to challenge that belief, that false belief, and so I'm challenging now to go spend a little time coding, and I'll catch you again soon. So thanks for watching. As always, feedback, you know what to do, and I'll catch you soon. Okay, bye.